One of the fantastic things about the project was the actual communities of practice approach. And so after our initial decision to take this further, we applied for institutional funds and got a teaching development grant that brought together 8, how many were in that initial network? 8 teachers together. And we worked quite tightly with a facilitator who was there to bounce between us and help keep us moving in our very overstuffed academic lives. And you know, that too was a really great experience. We didn't know each other before we got together, and not only were we able to share all sorts of disciplinary perspectives, but we really helped each other out practically in terms of class.
Yeah, I mean, I think there were 2 aspects of it for me that were most important. One is just that you do pick up ideas, I think, much more effectively from someone that's implementing them rather than, say, from a book or off some web resource. So I remember having conversations with some of the people in the community practice about, you know, fairly simple teaching techniques, but that for me were quite, you know, quite risky and quite at the edge of my comfort zone. And, you know, being able to talk to someone and, you know, build a sense of confidence that I would be able to use this technique on the basis of their experience, I think that was really, really useful. And the other thing is just, you know, I have a strong personal need to feel part of a wider scholarly community, and it was just really heartening how many of my colleagues in disciplines I knew nothing about, people I'd never met before, had very similar aspirations and goals to me as scholars, were very committed to teaching, and had a strong sense of the social mission of the university more generally. And that was just, you know, just give you so much energy to deal with some of the day-to-day, you know, difficulties that keep happening in the current environment, I think. So.
That first meeting was fantastic, where we got together, didn't know each other, and we realised that we had this common language of teaching and this passion for delivery, and through that initial conversation, then it started to find a whole lot of other commonalities. It was a really, I guess we shouldn't have been surprised, but it was a really nice surprise to find how productive that was in terms of our energy. The other thing was that once we moved beyond that initial University of Tasmania network, we had a national grant, and we had people from Murdoch in Western Australia, from University of New South Wales, from Wollongong, as well as our own network in Hobart, or in Tasmania. And that too was a really good experience, because we were working with other institutions that sometimes had quite different setups to what we were used to, and the barriers that we were used, the opportunities and the barriers that we were used to at our institution. And the way that we managed to sort of kick off conversation is that each of the 3 project leaders became a critical friend of the other partner institutions, and that too turned out to be one of the best things that we did in the project. And the person that I mentored is a climate scientist, and the conversations that we had with her were really important in terms of her own understanding of why it's so difficult for scientists to communicate with everybody else around this issue that they have deep knowledge of. And that really made a big difference in terms of her teaching, the way that she got confidence and skills to embed climate change teaching.
Yeah, I think that's an important part of the project, and I mean, there's a lot of talk about mentoring within universities, but often that's conceived, I think, as between, you know, senior and junior staff in particular. The mentoring that took place in our project was, you know, very much on a level basis, both because most of the people involved in the project, at least in the beginning, were fairly junior within the formal structures of the university, and certainly Emma and I, when we started out on this, were level B in the alphabet. So there's mentoring that's happening between people who are at a, you know, similar level, or who are not. The mentoring is not about the formal structure that we're in, because it was centred on teaching practice, and there was, you know, a strong ethos in the project, I think, that no one held the expertise about teaching. I think there was a very strong sense at all the universities we worked in that teaching is this craft that we learn, that there's always more to learn, and that there's always a lot to learn from your colleagues. These questions are never closed down forever. And I think that's a nice space in which to do mentoring. Because it's, you know, it's part of that ongoing learning, and this sense that, you know, we're all in it together.